In Lesson 1, we discussed the different regions and how the colonies were formed. Lesson 2, we are going to focus on the daily life in the colonies. In today's world, shopping for items that we want and need is as easy as going to the mall or shopping online. In colonial times, people did not have the same choices. How did the colonists earn money to feed and clothe their families? How did they improve their lives? Well, let's find out. Resources of the early colonies. The land, climate, and natural resources differed from one colony to another, which made living in each one unique. The environment affected the food colonists ate, the clothing they made, and homes they built. Most colonists lived and worked on farms. They grew or made much of what they needed. They sold crops and various products to pay for necessities, such as salt or tools. They bartered with neighbors for some items. To barter means to trade one good or product for another. The colony's location, land, or resources helped shape jobs for other colonists. For instance, those living along the New England coast made their living using the ocean's resources, such as whale hunting and shipbuilding. The middle colonies sheltered harbors and deep rivers made for traveling and trading easier. Because of this, some cities became thriving ports. Many colonists in cities such as New York and Philadelphia worked as merchants and traders. Others worked as sailors or dock workers, or people who loaded and unloaded cargo from ships. People changed the land to suit their needs. For example, some colonists built dams blocking rivers and streams to create power from the rushing water. Millers often set up their businesses next to a river or stream. They used the water power for their grist mills. Grist mills were machines used for grinding wheat into flour. Millers would insert the wheat or corn between two stones. As the power from the moving water crushed the wheat or corn, it would produce a fine grain. In the picture below, you can see that they used flowing water on a water wheel, which in yours it's a little dark, but it's right here in this region. That is the water wheel. So the moving wheel would turn the grinding stones inside the mill that would then crush the wheat or corn and produce the grain. Colonists had to work long, hard days to make and provide all the things that they needed to live. They did not have much time for luxury items that were not valuable to their everyday lives. Benjamin Franklin, a printer and writer who lived in the 1700s, wrote of a time when he was young and made the mistake of buying an unnecessary item, a whistle, that did not benefit the rest of his family. In The Whistle, he explained, in short, I conceive, which means think, that great part of the miseries, or the unhappiness, of mankind are brought upon them by false estimates they have made of the value of things, and by their giving too much for their whistles. So, our first reading checkpoint, it says to identify. So we're going to be looking at the map on the side, and I'm actually going to help you out with this a little bit more because it is kind of dark and hard to tell some of the figures. So what I'm going to do is circle and do the check marks on the legend. So it says circle the industry that was found in every region. Then place a check mark to those industries found in more than one region. Now, we have 3 regions, New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. So when they say in every region, they want it's found in the New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and then the Southern colonies. So we're going to do all our work kind of right on this legend so it's easier to see. Now, if we were looking, and if you can, make this out because you have better eyes than I do, you would see that timber, okay, so it's like this big black blob in my opinion, but timber is an industry that is found in every single region. So that would be something we could circle on our legend. Now, there's not too much else that's actually in each of the regions. So our other task is to put a check mark next to those industries found in more than one region. So we can find it in like New England and Southern or middle in the New England colonies. It just has to be more than one region. And some of those would include the fishing boats, okay? New England and middle colonies did those, so they're the little ships here. And so we would just have a check mark next to the ships. We also have timber as well if we really want to include it in both. There was also furs. It is found in the New England and the middle colonies. So we have furs. It's supposed to look like a little beaver. Okay. We could almost include fish, but they don't quite go down. So we're going to keep those as kind of our choices. So timber is able to have both because technically it's found in more than one region if it is found in all of them. But it was our only one that's found in all. And furs and ships are found in more than one region. All right. Moving on to trade routes and the location of the colonies. American colonists traded goods with other colonists. The colonies also traded with other countries, selling exports and buying imports. An export is a product sold to another country. An import is a product bought from another country. The colonies provided England with raw materials, or resources that can be made into other products. The English sold manufactured goods such as furniture and pottery to the colonies, which merchants displayed for sale to the customers. Now, displayed just means show. To control trade and protect its industries, England passed laws limiting trade between its colonies and other countries. This practice is known as protectionism. As a result, colonists had to rely on England for many necessities. These restrictions made many colonists angry. They felt that England was treating the colonies unfairly to increase England's profits from trade. The trade laws that England created were largely based on the system of mercantilism. This was an economic idea popular in the 1600s and 1700s, which suggested that governments should limit imports but increase manufacturing and exports. A country would earn more money from products it sold to other countries than it spent buying products from the other countries. Over time, colonial trade developed into a pattern known as triangular trade. It was called triangular because it had 3 stages that roughly form the shape of a triangle when viewed on a map. Now, we talked about this in our very first chapter that we went over, so you should have an idea of what this means. The locations of these areas were significant, meaning important. They were located on coasts and on major trade routes. Trade began in Europe. Goods such as metals and cloth were loaded onto ships. These ships sailed to the West African coast. There the goods were exchanged for slaves. The enslaved people were then brought to the Americas where they were sold. The cycle then started again. So our second reading checkpoint you see over on the side, it says to describe. So they're talking about the map down here. And it says to trace the route on the map with your fingers. So really all they want you to do is just do this. Discuss it with a partner, and you're going to decide who benefited most and least from this trade, and how did the location of each trading partner affect it. Now, you may do this with a parent or a sibling, or think about it yourself and jot down your response right here. Classes of society. Europeans in colonial society belonged to certain classes or society groups based on their wealth or importance. The gentry were the highest class in colonial society. They were the large landowners, wealthy merchants, and bankers. The men in this class felt it was their right to control others, so they usually served in the government. Church leaders were also in the highest class. The middle class had the largest number of colonists. These men and women worked in trades such as blacksmithing, silversmithing, and printing. They also worked as lawyers, doctors, or merchants who owned small stores. Most middle-class men were able to vote. Regular workers and servants made up the lower class. This group did not own property or businesses. Members of the lower class were not allowed to vote. A farmer working on a small farm or a worker on a fishing boat belonged to this class. Indentured servants and apprentices were also members of the lower class of society. Indentured servants were those who worked without pay in return for food, clothes, and transportation. Enslaved people were considered lower than these three classes of society. Now, our last reading checkpoint here. Again, main idea and details. So they want us to complete the diagram with information about the social classes in colonial society. Now, you will see that they finished the lower class for you. They labeled it, and they gave you who was in that class. So fishermen, farmers, indentured servants, and apprentices. So your task is going to be to write the different types of people that will be part of each class. So I'm going to label the classes for you, and then you will find the people who would go under that category. So remember, our lower class is all the way at the bottom. As we work up, then we are going to have the middle class because, well, it's in the middle. Top, bottom, middle. And then at our tippy top here, we're going to have the upper class. So you will look for the information that fills in what jobs or what types of people fit these classes, and you will write them right over here.